Welcome to a brand new series of Reading Aloud, the programme about books and authors full of inspirational ideas for the children you teach. Well, we're kicking off this series here at the Hawthorns, the home of West Bromwich Albion. And why is a dyed-in-the-wool Arsenal fan standing here? Because this club, along with many others throughout the country, are doing some pretty remarkable work in encouraging children to read. More on that later, but first, here's a look at what's coming up in the rest of the show. A bizarre bird hunt at the Baggies ground encourages reading. Best-selling author Anthony Horowitz reveals a publishing exclusive.
This is a new Diamond Brothers book. Even my publishers don't know I'm writing it.
While his schoolboy super spy inspires dramatic literacy work. And there are more spies, lies and secrets with Michael Frayn. The highly paid footballers emerging from this tunnel on a Saturday afternoon may be skillful athletes at the peak of their game, but they're not generally regarded as literacy role models. But then, a few years ago, a scheme was launched challenging the view that footballers are good at reading the game, but seldom pick up a book. The aim? To turn young football fans, particularly boys, into avid readers. There's a lot more to the Hawthorns ground than football. Every week, 1,000 children from neighbouring schools attend the club's community programme unit. Today, children who may be struggling with reading have to solve a mystery. West Brom's mascot, Baggy Bird, has gone missing. Their job? To track him down. The students play detective, adopting the role of Wes Bromwich, super sleuth. And, using clues hidden in a specially written story, they attempt to find the missing mascot.
In your capable hands, Wes. We're trying to engage kids through the medium of football. It's a classic partnership between a football club, the local education authority and the DFES, and it's bringing together all those experts in different fields to engage kids through football.
It's part of a nationwide initiative called Reading the Game, run by the National Literacy Trust and the Premier League.
West Bromwich and the mystery of the missing mascot will take you on a literacy trail of the ground. It'll take you to various points in the ground, the executive areas that most fans don't normally get the opportunity to sit in, the press area, the dugouts, and even the changing rooms. The beauty of this text is that although it has all the literacy curriculum links, pupils that come on this trail don't realise they're actually doing literacy. They are, of course, experiencing a ground tour, and some of the lucky ones even get to meet and interview a player about their reading habits.
Have you got a favourite author?
I like J.K. Rowling for the Harry Potter books. They're very interesting and fun in reading. I want to help them out, and I want to tell them what I do in my spare time, and if it's about reading and I do that, of course I'll tell them that, and hopefully they'll do the same.
If we can get Thomas Gardso, a footballer, to say, I read, you know, that's the sort of engagement you're looking at. That is absolutely brilliant. That tells the kids that not all footballers are thick.
The majority of them will go away not realising they've actually completed a national curriculum English session, and that's what we like about it.
Baggy Bird doing a sterling job here at the Hawthorns. Now you've lit the reading fuse. What books are available for use in the classroom? Well, award-winning author Anthony Horowitz has discovered that there's a huge appetite for his stories about Alex Ryder, a schoolboy super spy. Matters of national security are rarely witnessed here, but today, spooks, spies and MI6 have invaded the Black Country. As a best-selling author goes on a mission to sign 500 copies of his massively popular spy and horror books in less than an hour.
There we go, for you.
To say Anthony Horowitz is a prolific writer is an understatement. He's written 27 children's stories in the last 30 years, selling more than 20 million books. And his young fans eagerly await each new title.
I am a paid liar. In fact, since I have begun talking on this stage, I have already lied to you twice. That wasn't true. Okay, you see, that's what I mean. You got to just sort of make it up for yourself. I write stories that I find personally entertaining, and which I hope children broadly, and even some adults, will find entertaining too. I have strong feelings, for example, about violence in children's books. There isn't enough of it, but that's... The genres that I write in, the spy genre and the whodunits and all the rest of it, are by their very nature mere entertainments. And it's certainly true that my role does seem to have been to get kids started to read. That's, everybody's always telling me that, if it wasn't for you, my children wouldn't read. It's a wonderful position to have. Afterwards, if you don't like it...
Anthony's working on a new book full of puns and jokes and gave his audience an exclusive preview.
This is a new Diamond Brothers book. Even my publishers don't know I'm writing it, so nobody knows it's here except for you now. And it goes like this. It seemed that everyone in Camden Town knew I was broke. Even the turkeys were laughing at me. On the last day of term, the teachers had a whip round for me. Not that I really needed a whip, but I suppose it's a thought that counts. If I read out a chapter or a couple of pages to an audience, I can just tell from the vibe I'm getting back again whether it's working or not. Christmas was just 10 days away, and the only money I had was a £10 book token that my parents had sent me from Australia. I cannot imagine a world without all the writers that I love, from, Dickens and Austen and Hardy and Gissing and Orwell. These are the writers who have shaped my life. She smiled sadly at me. Have you tried Philip Pullman? No. Do you think he'd lend me some money? And I would love to think that somewhere out there is a child who might start reading Stormbreaker and discover all these other writers as an adult. So if teachers are using my books to encourage reading, I have no argument with that.
Someone who's doing just that with his Year 8 class is Andrew Cooley, Head of English at St Albans School in Birmingham.
Why did Anthony Horowitz include this last paragraph in this story? He turned his back on Alex and climbed into the helicopter cabin. Behind the glass, Yasin raised his hand, a gesture of friendship, a salute. Alex raised his hand, and the helicopter spun away. Why that ending? Amelia?
To make the reader want to read on to the next book to find out what happens to the end of the story.
OK. They took the book home, and most of them had read it over the weekend, so they came in on the Monday with the book already read, a good understanding of what it was about. So then we set up a whole load of tasks for them to do, which included mocking up their own gadgets.
Gadgets from the book?
Gadgets from the book and typical spy gadgets.
It's called a reversible iPod tracking device.
Some wrote stories. Some chose to do board games. The room was a hive of activity.
Did he set up any kind of rivalry between Ryder and Bond?
Oh, yes. We had two of the boys decided that they wanted to do a Bond versus Ryder face-off.
The name's Bond. James Bond, 007.
My name's Alex Ryder. Please, just call me Alex.
I've been all over the world.
I didn't give them Ian Fleming's books, but they knew the stories from the films, and they knew where the characteristics came from. They knew where the similarities were, and they were able to make those sorts of comparisons. And those are exactly the sorts of things they need to be able to do according to the frameworks in the curriculum.
I agree. I must go. I have homework to catch up on.
And the class had a few questions of their own for Anthony Horowitz.
Well, there will certainly be a 7th Alex Ryder book. At the moment, I don't have a plot, I don't have a title, I don't have any characters, and I don't have a setting. But otherwise, it's going very well. All the villains in my books are drawn out of the newspapers. I have to be very careful because of lawyers and stuff, but if you look in the press, there are always, every day, huge villains doing horrible things. I just borrow them and change their names.
When the immensely busy Anthony Horowitz isn't writing children's fiction, he turns his hand to TV drama such as Foyle's War, tales of intrigue and double-dealing in wartime Britain, which takes us neatly to the book our panel have been reading this week, Spies by Michael Frayn, a story of wartime espionage. The spies are two young boys, Stephen and Keith. Their adventure begins when Keith is led to suspect his own mother.
The rest of our lives was determined in that one brief moment, and Keith watched her walk away, with a dreamy look in his eye that I remembered from the start of so many of our projects. My mother, he said reflectively, almost regretfully. He's a German spy.
I thought this really, in some ways, was one of those books that was the self-enclosed world of the child, and in some way that's the cause of all the problems and the drama of the book.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way of putting it, actually, because you've got this very close friendship between Keith, who sort of holds the upper hand, and Stephen, who's sort of very slightly his sidekick and knows and feels that he's rather inferior. And a lot of the book is about the sort of interplay between them, and then you've got all of these other people around them, their sort of mothers and fathers and relations and friends. But really it's the unequal friendship between those two that sort of fuels the book.
Another way to take the book is that it's really about the secret lives that go on inside families, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because you've got this middle-class family and their relationships juxtaposed against this sort of lower-class, not quite nice family. It looks really well put together. It's the nuclear family, yes. But none of them talk to one another.
Do you think there are any pointers in the book for us as teachers about how we treat children?
Well, I've used this book in class. We read a short paragraph from the text, the actual part that ends with Keith revealing his mother's a spy, and we used it as to form part of a debate over the different children's feelings during wartime with that revelation. So half the class looked at Keith's perspective, half the class looked at Stephen's perspective. I wouldn't actually use the rest of the text with Year 6 for various reasons. I think for Year 6 it's a little too in-depth for them, but for Year 7 and 8 I think it'd give a really good insight into childhood during the Second World War at the home front.
Grant?
I think there's an awful lot in the book about bullying. I mean, the central character, Stephen, who's relating his memories of childhood as the narrator of the book. But it does actually, you get a sense of Stephen growing up during the book and getting a bit more sort of power and purchase, particularly over his friend Keith, but also about the rest of his life.
When Stephen really needs support, there is nobody he can go to. There's no adult he can talk to about his feelings. And we as educators need to enable children to do that.
Now, we're supposed to think that Keith's mum is a spy, but there are a lot more mysteries go on in this book, aren't there?
Yeah, nobody's quite who they seem, really. And, you know, we've got various heroes, and by the end of the book we find out that their lives are much more complex. You know, without giving away the ending, there are spies in the close.
Did you get the ending before it came?
I did, actually, but it's... I'd worked it out from just one phrase in the book, which made me think, but it's a brilliant twist. It's an absolute brilliant twist.
Yeah, I think the author manages to hide it very, very well, so that you're concentrating so much on the boys and the mother and the family that you actually sort of skip over that evidence. So it's a very, very good twist.
Well, that's it from Reading Aloud. Just time to return briefly to soccer. And it occurs to me that the potential to use the world of football as a learning tool is immense. Just think of the fun that can be had with those daft grammar and nonsense comments that players, commentators and managers find so easy to let slip. I'll leave you with one of my favourites, credited to the great Terry Venables. If history is going to repeat itself, I think we can expect the same thing again. Bye.